Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. Just give us 5 minutes. We're allowing more persons to sign in, and then we'll get started. Good night, everyone. My name is Jessica Ford. Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Welcome to Builders Lab, the Masterclass of Men in Business 2025. Good night, good night. Yes, yes. Okay. Okay, so welcome. So our apologies for starting so late. Um, Tonight in Builders Lab, we will be focusing on soft skills, unlike technical skills that help us to start our business. We wanted to focus on skills that would help us grow and overcome challenges. Our hope is that at the end of the Builders Lab, that not only that your mindset will be transformed, but your personal development. I will now hand it over to our partners for this training, NTA, the National Training Agency, and I'll let Andre introduce himself.
Pleasant good evening. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to partner with SPDC on behalf of the National Training Agency, our executive director and our executive chair, Agatha K. Marcel. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about something that is so important. It is simply two words, emotional intelligence. And before we dive into that, I'm going to ask you some questions. And for the purpose of this exercise tonight, I want to encourage you to utilize the chat to type. I'm going to go through the chat. I'm going to look at your responses. If you don't decide to utilize the chat, I still want you to have those conversations with yourselves in the spaces that you are in. And so the first question I want to ask you is, before we get into everything, how was your day? That's a basic question for some. That's a simple question for others. If you're like me, I had a long day. I was stuck in traffic. My PowerPoint presentation weren't working. I was managing so many things, so many emotions, so many pressures. I want you to take a minute. I want you to think, how was your day? And I'm looking in the chat because I want to see some of those feedbacks. I see too short. Listen, I feel like I don't have enough time in the day. 24 hours isn't enough. Somebody said long. I could definitely agree. Productive and progressive. The person that said good, I want to have the day you had today, tomorrow. Somebody said great day. It's the same. Day went by fast. And we're seeing a lot of feedback. Complex. I believe complex has been the norm for the past 2 weeks. Every day, 7 to 5. Somebody said productive, can't complain. Felt pretty good. I want that day, Corey. I had a very long but productive day. And so we see a lot of feedback coming into the chat that depicts the kind of days we had. Some had good days, some had long days, some had productive days, some even had eventful days. It's cold, it's windy on the outside. Yes, we all could attest even to the ones that may have noted it was very, very complex. So now that you've done that, I'm going to ask you something, and I want to be intentional about this, not so much to ask you how you felt today, but rather to sort of ask you what showed up today that required control. In the moments when you felt today was going complex, when pressure came, frustration, focus, distraction, urgency, patience, confidence, restraint, composure, drive, I want you to think of what showed up today that required control of yourself. And I want you to pick one word that best describes what showed up for you today. I'll list some, but I want you to think as they come. If any stands out to you, I definitely want you to pick one. Pressure, frustration, focus, distraction, urgency, patience, confidence, restraint, composure, drive. Now, you may not have one of those items that I said just now, but I want you to think of what showed up today that required control. And I want you to use one word to describe and to define that. And I want you to type it into the chat. We see a lot of feedback coming in. This is really, really good. So we see, yeah, we see fruitful, I had a blessed day. Sleep. Faith. I see that. Distractions, yes. Self-control, patience, strength, challenges, hopeful, focus. I see a lot of get easy. Listen, I won your day, Tavares. I won your day. Empathy and understanding, definitely necessary. Pressure. Unplanned events. I think for me, it was unplanned meetings, at least four. Self-control, patience, distractions, drive. We're seeing a lot of good things come in, and I want to get some more control or procrastination. Very challenging adaptability. And we're seeing a lot of things being identified as the one word that sort of describes what showed up today. Now, the next thing I want you to just think about was as you've identified how your day was, the one thing that showed up that best describes your day, I want you to now ponder on the question, who was in control of that day? You or the situation? You are the situation. I want you to think about that. Who was in control of today? You are the situation. I see a lot of me's. Me. Even the ones that were frustrated, you were still in control. The ones that felt overwhelmed, the ones that felt pressure, the ones that felt annoyance, you were still in control. Me. As somebody said, and God. Amen to that. Okay, the situation one today, Kareem, it be like that sometimes. I feel like the situation almost one today as well. And so I'm so glad we are having this conversation. Somebody said the Holy Spirit, I control my day myself, overwhelmed situations. So it seems as if we have a good mix. We have a mix of, there are some of you, you were able to control the day didn't run you, but then there were others, the day controlled you. Thank you so much for your honesty, but also thank you for your transparency, because the moments that follow next, they simply lay the foundation for what it is we are going to discuss. And the reality is, every single word you just named, pressure, frustration, focus, urgency, those aren't weaknesses. Those are signals, and they are also indicators. And the reality is, whether you lead a team, you run a business, you manage clients, you show up in your family, your emotions will always be present. And the difference is whether they're working for you or they're working against you. Whether you're ignoring the indicators or acknowledging that they are present. And so tonight, we'll navigate a conversation on emotional intelligence, and I'm going to make sure you have access to that PowerPoint presentation. But this conversation, it isn't going to be about changing who you are. It's going to be all about strengthening how you respond. How you respond under pressure, how you respond when frustrated, how you respond when you're managing the conflicts of business and family, when you're dealing with those customers who represent so many negative things and not the good, the how you respond. And by the end of tonight, because I do believe in goals, the goals are for you to be able to, one, define emotional intelligence, and not just to find it, but also to understand the four components that are connected to it. The second goal for you tonight will definitely be to identify your personal triggers, because something triggers how we respond. There are things that triggers how we react. They are the moments that test our patience, our judgment, but also our leadership. And leadership is so important for men in business. And then the third goal, you're going to apply practical strategies that will help you to manage pressure, frustration, and stress, some healthy options at work, in your business, but also in your everyday life. And then the fourth goal, we're going to strengthen our capacity to empathize, but also to communicate without compromise, to communicate with authority, but also to communicate with respect. And then the final thing, we're going to understand how emotional intelligence directly impacts performance, leadership, and also relationships. And these things, while they were five heavy goals, it's important to understand that they are a necessity for men in business, because the strongest men in the room aren't the ones who feel nothing. They're the ones who know what's happening internally, they acknowledge it, but then they also choose their response anyway. I want you to type into the chat, I acknowledge and I choose. I acknowledge and I choose. I acknowledge and I choose. And that's the basis of what we believe as we navigate this conversation tonight. And so when you think of the term, and I see those feedbacks coming in the chat, keep them coming, because we acknowledge and we choose. And so when I think of the term emotional intelligence, several things come to my mind, but I want to hear from you before I share those things. When you think of emotional intelligence, the phrase, the term, what comes to your mind? Feel free to also go ahead and put those in the chat. I acknowledge, I choose. Yes, yes, yes. Regulating responses, understanding, maturity, controlling my feelings, being in touch with your emotions and being able to differentiate between them, resistance and control. We see all those things coming in, and in between those things, we see the phrase I acknowledge and I choose. Awareness to self, empathy, maturity, patience, level headed, controlling reaction, being educated on emotions, assessing the situation. We see so many things coming in the chat, and all of those things are correct. The reality is, most people think emotional intelligence is all about feelings. It's actually more so all about information and the information that flows or comes from emotions or feelings. And so when we look at the broader scope of what emotional intelligence is and just what it's all about, it sums up all of the feedback you gave just now. It's the ability to recognize what's happening inside you. That's huge. It's the ability to recognize what's happening on the inside of you. You have to recognize what's going on with you first. You have to be able to manage it effectively. And then you also have to be able to respond wisely to what's happening around you. And so it's being able to understand what's happening on the inside of you, but also what's happening with others. And I will clarify that a little bit more, because there are two directions emotional intelligence always works in. It's not north, it's not south, it's not east, it's not west. No, it's self, and then there's others. So the first direction, self, it takes us on a journey to recognizing, understanding, and managing ourselves. It's all about leading yourself under pressure. The second one is simply all about others. Before we get to the others, allow me to break down self a little bit more for you. The recognize in self, because we talked about recognizing, understanding, and managing yourself. I want to talk about the recognize, because the reality is most problems don't start big. They start with a feeling that we sometimes ignore. It starts with the body signals, the tension, the tone change, the shallow breathing. It starts with the thought signals, the rushing, the assuming, the withdrawals. A good example. If your email has 5 exclamation points, that's not urgency. That could just be emotion. Emotions don't show up randomly. They're always attached to something. They're attached to common triggers. It could be pressure, it could be ego, it could be the expectations of having to manage a business, pay staff, the money may not be coming in like it should. It could also be feeling disrespected. Half the time, we're not mad at the situation, we're reacting to what it touched. Then manage. Managing has to do with not so much having the control, because control doesn't mean suppression, it means direction. And the reality is, what we fail to manage can end up managing us. And so, a question I always encourage people to ask when you're faced in a moment where your emotions are reacting is you have to ask yourself the question, what do I want to happen next? because you're allowing your mind to regulate and respond in an intelligent manner. The question posed, it moves you from a place of reaction to a place of response. And then I want to talk about the others. So the first thing was self, and that's the first direction. The second direction is others. And this has to do with leading situations without losing people. Because you're in business, you're in leadership, you're managing teams, you're not doing this alone. People are involved. And it's important for you to first recognize, what are you recognizing? Emotions don't disappear because people don't talk about them. They're always present. And so you have to be able to recognize, you have to be able to watch for the signs. Some signs are silence. Some signs are short answers. Some signs are when the energy shifts, something you just feel it, your spirit just feel a little bit off, something is a little bit unsettled. But also, when someone says, I'm fine, it doesn't mean that they're really fine. And so the thought I want you to think on as we ponder on that is simply this. How many meetings have you been in where nothing was said, but everything was felt? The tension, the energies, the vibes. The reality is, people don't react to what you say, they don't react to what we say, they react to what it means to them. And there are some factors that impact our ability or the people's ability to understand. Those factors are stress, it's past experiences, but it's also feelings unheard. And so it's important for us to understand that understanding doesn't mean agreeing, it means we are being informed. And then the final thing connected to the others is simply responding and responding in an effective manner. You can be right and still be ineffective because there's several things that we call guiding principles that should sort of guide how we respond to ensure our response is effective. And the first thing is tone over volume. The second thing is timing over speed. And then the third thing is curiosity over our assumptions. One thing I always encourage people to do is simply to acknowledge first and then address. And so the reality is, emotional intelligence isn't about being emotional, it's about being responsible. And as men in business, you have an obligation to be responsible to yourselves. You also have an obligation to be responsible to the people you interact with, you network with, but also the people you will lead and manage as you navigate business. Strong men, they don't avoid emotions because we have them. They're going to show up every day, but they develop the skills to manage them and to manage them well. And so I always encourage people, if you lead, if you sell, if you negotiate, if you parent, if you partner, both matter. Manage your emotions well, see it as a skill. Because when you do just that, you're going to tap into sort of the art of walking every day, stepping into the room with a level of emotional intelligence that's required for you to own the room, seal the deals, and get things done and accomplish. In the next few moments that I have remaining, I want to navigate the four parts of emotional intelligence. And this is something that Daniel Goldman breaks down for us. And he breaks it into four practical areas. And as we navigate these areas, I want you to think of them as skills, not personality traits. Skills can always be developed. Personality traits, and some people, it comes with time, it comes as they go. Some people are born with those things, but I want you to think of these four practical areas as skills. The first thing is self-awareness. I want you to type into the chat, say, I am aware. I am aware. And what you are simply aware of yourself. When we talk about self-awareness, it's developing the understanding that you have to catch it before it catches you. You have to catch your emotions before it catches you. I remember recently I was in a boardroom style meeting And I was sitting to the table and we were negotiating and having a conversation regarding some timelines, some projects, and some other commitments connected to that project. Assignments and tasks were laid out, and everyone around the table got their share, and someone around the table decided to just use the opportunity to sort of pass their work off to me. And I said, with all due respect, that was the first two words that came out of my mouth. And someone around the table looked at me and said, Kelly Grace, Kelly Grace, Kelly, extend grace. And my next thought was to say, what you mean extend grace? I'm always doing the work, doing this, doing that. But in that moment, two things helped me to sort of catch it before it caught me. And I had an interesting moment that I probably would have had so many regrets after. The With all due respect, that was a caution for me that kept me aware that I needed to be guided by what came next, but also my colleagues saying, Kelly, grace, Kelly, extend grace. And possibly because they also had an awareness of who I am in certain moments, and they were attempting to influence it, self and others. Others can influence our level of self awareness as we also influence that as well. So, self awareness is the ability to notice what's happening before you say something you can't take back. It's the moment when our hearts races or the rate of our heart changes, when our jaws tighten. If you're like me, your mouth might tremble a little bit. Patience starts packing its bags, and you're ready to just risk it all and let it go. That's a huge one. The question I want to ask you is when you find yourself in moments like that, what's your go to emotions? When the pressure hits, when things don't go as planned, what's your go-to emotion? I want you to drop some examples in the chat. Is it frustration? Is it silence? Is it irritation? Is it control mode? Is it shutdown mode? Is it a I don't care mode? There's no wrong answer here. I want you to simply be honest. Somebody said laughter. Yeah, I love that too. Okay, shut down. The best thing to do is pray. Listen, pray without ceasing, although sometimes it's really, really hard to, find those moments. Okay, frustration. Step back and laugh. I think we laugh too. Yeah. Anger, self-restraint. All of these things that are coming in are really, really good. Shut down and breathe. Yeah. Don't care mode. Don't care mode always on for some people. That's good. And we don't judge. We see the comments coming in. We don't judge. We just listen. And so thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm glad you're able to express that because the reality is most men aren't aware. Some people may think of their emotions, but also you'll find that not just most men aren't aware of their emotions, most men we aren't aware until after the damage is done sometimes, right? Because society says we have to suppress how we feel, we can't speak about those things. And so sometimes we keep it in, and in the midst of keeping it, it becomes a boiling pot of water and it just rims over. And then we have moments where damage is done and we may not be able to take it back. And so self-awareness takes us to a place where we don't have to get to that place. It doesn't make us weak, but it makes us prepared. It gives us an opportunity to step back, to analyze. And for some people, you may shut down, you may become irritated, you may become silenced or frustrated. Those are the triggers. Pay close attention to the triggers because when you acknowledge them as the triggers, you're able to understand the moment that's about to possibly come, pop, or go down, and you're able to ask yourself the question, what do I really want to happen next? That's a level of self-awareness. Now, the second part of what Daniel encourages has to do with self-management. What you do once you notice it. Some people, they cut a movie, they do it professionally. Some people, they just don't do it. Some people walk away. Some people give up. Some people say some words, use profanity and stuff. It's what you do once you notice it. And self-manage is the difference between how we react but also how we respond. Reaction is automatic. And that's why it's so important to take a minute, stick a pin, analyze before you respond, because your response is intentional. I've had so many moments where managing some things in a nonprofit aspect and even in my professional career, I've sent emails. And I've sent emails, and after I sent those emails in the moment, I was like, God, I wish I had just waited. Have you ever been in that position before? You sent an email and you realized at the end you should have waited. Maybe the grammar was wrong. Maybe you sent some things in caps. Maybe someone could have sensed the tension coming through that email because of how it was sent. Self-management is simply knowing when to pause so you don't send the email you regret or have the conversation that you regret. And it's not because you're scared, but it's because you understand who you really, really are, and you want to be strategic and intentional about the next step to ensure you don't burn a bridge or damage a relationship. In business, you're gonna have a lot of moments, as you probably are already aware, where self-management has to become the theme and the anthem of your journey. The third one is simply social awareness. And so we navigated the first one. The first one was what? Can anyone remember what the first one was? There are four things Daniel encourages us. The first one was, let's see, we giving out some prizes. Okay, self-awareness. I take that back. We're not giving out any prizes. The second one was what? What was the second one? I see those in the comments. What was the second one? I react differently to different situations. I agree, we all do. And so we see them coming in. The second one is that self-management. And the third one is a huge one. It's social awareness. And I think a lot of people struggle with this one. This is one of the things that should be obvious, but it's the silent or deadly denominator in a lot of people's interactions. It's simply social awareness. Reading the room without needing a memo. Reading the room, understanding who's in the room, realizing the meeting went left before someone has to tell you the meeting went left, realizing that they're not interested in this product, but based on the language they're using and their thought processing, maybe they're interested in this one. And so I have to stop talking about this one and switch the focus. In some cases, tone, body language, silence, energy, all of those things impact social awareness. But just read the room. One way you could definitely do that is by actively listening. Pay attention to what the body says, to what the tone carries. Pay attention to the energy, the language of the body, and the movements of the body, because all of that is supposed to help your level of social awareness. I have a question for you. How many times have you said, I didn't know they felt that way and everyone else did? It could be a business partner, it could be in a meeting. I just didn't know they felt that way, but everyone else obviously did. Now, I'm highlighting that because I want to make a point as we talk about relationship management. It's not a personality issue. It's really and truly a skill gap. And I want to say this with caution. This is a disclaimer. Emotionally intelligent men don't just speak, we ought to observe. We observe through our ability to active listen, but also to just read the room. Relationship management is the fourth thing that Daniel encourages us to pursue. And that's simply us being able to win the moment versus winning the relationship, or winning the moment versus and winning the relationship. Some people try to win the moment and they lose the relationship. I'm all about not just winning the moment, but attempting to win the relationship. And there's several things that's required for that. But one of the greatest things I think that will be required for that is social awareness. And so when we talk about simply us showing up in a space where we are able to sort of win the relationship versus the moment, this is where leadership shows up and this is where leadership steps in. Relationship management is simply using what you know about yourself and others to create better outcomes. I want to ask you a question, and you could type this in the chat if you want. You don't have to. But your last tough question or your last tough conversation, did it end the situation or did it improve the relationship? And the reason why I'm asking you that is because it brings us back to as we embrace partnerships, conversations, business, as we own the stage and the platform that life gives us, we have to show up as the best, emotionally intelligent version of ourselves. Emotional intelligence is about long-term influence, not short-term dominance. And so we have to really understand that it's all about how I manage this for the long run, not for one day, not for 2 weeks, but the end goal, which is the long-term goal. There's a truth I want to leave with you as we begin to navigate the end of this conversation. And it's simply you're not responsible for every emotion that shows up. You won't get it right all the time, but it's important for you to just think and carry with you every day that you are responsible for what you do with the emotions when they show up. That's emotional responsibility. And the reality is, strong men, we don't avoid our emotions, we don't hide them, we don't act like they don't exist. We manage them through recognizing, understanding, and embracing them. And so I want to give you some practical ways to help you sort of manage strong emotions when they show up. Because awareness without action is just information. And so the first thing is in the moment, pause and breathe. We saw that in the comment section earlier. Somebody like to pause, somebody like to breathe. The reason why you're taking on that approach is because it slows your body down. Name the emotions. When I was managing teams at Rio Palace, I would say sometimes, or even at Bahama at the water park, I would tell my executive assistant in the morning, hey, I feel like choosing violence this morning. And she knew automatically that that was me naming the emotion or the mood that I was in. And the reason why I named the emotion because clarity kills the chaos or the confusion connected to the misassumption, possibly as to what's really going on and happening in the moment. Ask, what do I want to do next? Don't just ask yourself, what do you want to do next? But ask yourself, how do you want your next steps to look? The reality is, you don't solve the problem first. You attempt to stabilize yourself first. And that's why, in the moments, those things are so important to regulate your level of emotional intelligence. The next thing is process and release. You've navigated in the moment, you're journeying through processing and releasing. Talk it out. Don't just talk it out with anyone who will encourage you to cut a movie, walk away, risk it all, talk it up with the right person who will provide you with balanced perspective, a mentor, a business partner, a call. Find someone, talk it out. Sometimes writing it down works. Write it down. Write, write down your responses because in some cases everyone can have a conversation right then and there. And so writing it down helps. Take a break and know when to take a break and to walk away. Walking away isn't quitting, it's simply controlling the outcome, leaving space and room so that you're able to come back and navigate it again at a later date. And a lot of that is so important, especially as you attempt to seal those deals, get those contracts, get into rooms, know when to take a break, know when to walk away. It isn't all about quitting, it's simply about controlling the outcome. And then there are some long-term disciplines because the reality is business isn't easy. I've been in business for a few years, managing a company called Public Speaking Authority, and I stopped, went back working full time because I needed that money, that little thing. It just wasn't enough. I wanted to take trips and do some things and live life. But there was also some thoughts that were in my mind telling me, this don't make no sense. You were making more money at Bahama. Go here, go there, go here, go here. You have to be able to challenge the negative thoughts. That's one of the huge things to help you to regulate your emotions. Don't just challenge the negative thoughts, think positive talks, but also just encourage yourself with positive self-talks. Set boundaries. Set boundaries. Concerning your business, concerning your personal life, set boundaries. Those things are going to help you. But also find some healthy distractions. It's good to walk away from time to time and come back. Don't be afraid to give it time. The journey of 1,000 miles began with one step, and that one step may have been one day, but those 1,000 steps may have been another day. It takes time. And then practice self-compassion. Don't go too hard on yourself. Don't carry yourself too hard. All of those things impact how you respond because your emotions are at play. Discipline isn't about suppression, it is all about direction. And so, as you navigate coming into who you are in a greater way this year in your business, just using emotional intelligence as skill, a tool, an aid to help you, the goal isn't to feel less, the goal is always to feel and to lead better. The strongest men in the room aren't the loudest. They're the ones who know what's happening internally and still choose their response. And so the next time pressure shows up, and I'm sure it's going to be tomorrow, what will you do differently? I want you to write that in the chat. And as you write that into the chat, I want you to know that decision, it matters. And also, that decision is emotional intelligence in action. Somebody say, a club that, oh, I thought she was meaning a real club. Okay, thank you for that one. A club that help you grow. Yes, pray. Slow my response time. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's the end of my presentation. It's been a pleasure. I'm sharing on you with a little bit about emotional intelligence. We see some more comments coming in. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Andre. That was such a good topic and session. I hope we had some takeaways. Can everyone put one of their takeaways from the session in the chat? And let's tell Andre, thank you for such an informative session. So this brings Builders Lab session 1 to an end. And we will see you guys next week. However, because we were having issues tonight and we weren't able to share the slides, we will be emailing them to you guys so you can look out for that. And see you next week.